cool dream today with my friend Kelly Gordley, who lives in, is it Puyallup or Tacoma, Washington?
Puyallup.
Puyallup. So Kelly has already had this dream, and I've already done an official interpretation. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get her to share the dream, and then I'm going to share my response to that, like we usually do, processing through it. But I'm going to use the notes that I have actually already put together for the process of this dream. So this will be fun because we'll have a lot of detail there. So Kelly, tell us about this crazy dream.
Right. Well, I dreamed that my husband and I had bought a house in kind of an upscale neighborhood. But our house wasn't the fanciest one on the block, but it was at the corner and it was up on a hill.
Oh.
So it had a good vantage point.
Oh, yes, it did. Okay, so let me stop you there.
Okay.
So one of the things I was talking about is that you had a really good, as you were saying, a good perspective or a good vantage point. But it's also got the appearance of quality, right? And it's sitting on a higher level.
Yeah.
So about value as well. But you said it's not the fanciest house in the neighborhood, which is actually, those are sometimes the most valuable houses. Because for resale value, right, people are not going to buy the best house in the neighborhood or on the street. They're going to buy one that is valuable in quality and location. Yeah, alrighty. And so I'm wondering if the house actually even represents some sort of experience that you are walking through or that you're having, and something that you're participating in. Now, you mentioned before we started the recording that this might even be something for your now, your present. However, we did this dream. When did we do this dream? You actually submitted it through the site, and I interpreted it personally for you. So how long has that been?
It's been actually almost a year to date.
Wow. So did it make sense when you got the interpretation then, and now it's...
It did a little bit then.
Okay.
I mean, there were parts of it that I could relate to, but now, almost a year later that we're doing this, and the interpretation walking through this today, it makes a lot more sense. There's a lot more perspective that has unfolded in this past year.
And I love the way Creator works in that. It's crazy. I mean, I've had dreams where 4 or 5 years later, it's like, there's the aha, right? It's crazy, but He knows exactly the timing.
Yeah.
And I love that. Okay. All right, so tell me the next part.
The other part of it was the yard itself. Like the front yard seemed to have tiers, like layers to it.
Okay.
And it was surrounded by a cinder block wall.
Okay.
So that was interesting too.
Okay, yeah, and I think what I got on instead of it being like a typical retaining wall, which could be anything but is usually stone rather than just plain or common cinder block, right? It's about supporting foundational elements so you don't lose your yard in your house, right? So I'm wondering if, though the tiers, we talked about this, if the tiers had something to do with even educational levels, like of your intellect and sort of the way you were prepared, because it's your dream, your house, right? So I'm wondering if you maybe feel like it's not the highest quality education. Maybe you didn't get it from an Ivy League school, but your experiences have taught you. So there are still levels to the experience and to the house which you have experienced and gained through the experience, which is very interesting.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate to that now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty.
Which is good.
Good. Okay, so you're talking about the yard being sloped.
Yeah.
What did that look like?
It seemed to be like in layers or tiers, and it went kind of up to the house. Okay. And then inside of the house, the people that I guess we had purchased the house from previous, it was still left in their like furnishings and their decor. Okay. So it wasn't really my aesthetic. It really wasn't my
and
design.
They left their furnishings. The
furniture, the decorations, the wall hangings, all that kind of stuff. So it didn't really feel like a sense of ownership, even though we had purchased the home.
Okay.
It felt like somebody else's imprint was still there.
Sure, which makes sense. Yeah. I'm wondering too if this correlation with sort of the Scholastic level is connected to, how some people really have a lot of pride in their status and their education, depending on what their alma mater is. Is there a chance you have felt less than because your education does not look like someone else's?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so that's something that
It
has
translates, yeah, for sure.
Okay, alrighty. And then you wind up with somebody else's decor. So it's almost like when you purchased the house or you legally took possession of the house, you sort of inherited someone else's traditions and belief systems, which is kind of the way things work sometimes in the spirit realm, right? And it felt more status quo. It wasn't, you're very unique. So just in general, I know you pretty well. You're in our school, you're pretty unique. We love that about you. And so somebody else's stuff would not work in your space.
Probably not.
Yeah, no. Yeah, just because of who you are and because of the way you process even data and information. The way Creator has educated you is much different than the way somebody else might be educated. However, you could have gone to Harvard and not learned what you've learned.
True.
Where would you have gotten that information?
Through life experience.
I know. It's only Creator.
Yeah.
Only He being sort of sneaky about your processes and taking you through that you actually get that sort of information. I love that. Okay, so you weren't really feeling very comfortable in the house because it didn't feel like yours.
Not
Had
really.
somebody else's imprint.
It did.
So this has got to be about, being connected or being okay with status quo or someone else's DNA. That's not going to work for you because your imprint or your fingerprint is going to look much different. So you've had to go through processes and figure out your own belief systems and traditions. And I've known you, 4 or 5 years?
Not bad, yeah.
Okay, well, I've seen you grow a lot
Yes. Oh, yes.
in those 4 or 5 years, and you have become very astute about just processes and working procedures like logistics and practicum in the spirit realm, which is so cool. You guys need to connect with Kelly because she is very cool. She's got lots of information that you probably need at some point. All right, so then you go into a part where it's you and your husband in bed that night.
Yeah, so we were laying there getting ready to go to sleep.
Okay.
And he was on his cell phone, just kind of scrolling through and looking at stuff, probably ESPN stuff, sports.
Okay.
That's what he does. But there was a woman that was laying between us, a blonde lady.
Okay.
And she was laying there talking all about her alma mater and how much her education was so important to her.
Oh my.
And wearing her collegiate wear was like a source of pride and, and it was like she was talking to Mike, but he didn't realize she was there, didn't really pay her any attention. Didn't
Okay.
pay her no mind.
So he's not even aware.
No. And so I was trying to go to sleep and I was left at the edge of the bed. So it was very
I love
interesting.
that.
Yeah.
So to me, she represents sort of what I like to call the talking head.
Yeah.
Sort of that that voice that tells you you're not enough. You've got to be this. You've got to be excellent in your intellect, in your education, in your scholastic endeavors. It's what society tells us we need at times, right?
Yes.
So, but she was really taunting you in that. Interesting. Separating you from your agreement. Now, Mike, your husband, probably just represented, part of the agreement with Creator, where he wasn't paying any attention to anything she was saying. And her ideas might have been a bit bleached out. You said blonde.
Yeah.
Sometimes blonde could represent being bleached out or having a sort of a clean slate, but it sounds like she was influenced by a lot of society's ideas about scholastic activity and education. So I'm wondering if that status is what the enemy was trying to taunt you with. But if what you're in agreement with was spirit laying next to you, and he wasn't paying any attention, that it's very interesting that unconsciously or subconsciously you're having to deal with those voices. We all have those voices that try to tell us who we are or label us, but we know better.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of throwing a hand up at that thing, right? Just saying, oh no, I'm not paying any attention to you.
Talk to the hand.
I love that, and that's the way we love it. So those accusations about who we are and all of that just makes great sense. Well, that is a super cool dream, and I love that. And so we're going to stop here and invite you to watch us again later. But remember, it is not just a